Okay, so we're gonna do shading. These are nice pencils. Anybody ever use these pencils? It's called a Blackwing. My niece gave them to me for Christmas. It's a nice pencil. Okay, so shading. We start out. Make 3 little squares, okay? And go dark, that's some serious dark. Medium, light, okay? And now go back at it and go, I want you to transition, go dark, and now leave a transition zone, okay? And start to turn towards, start to gently move towards that medium value in such a way as you can't see where the change happens. And start to move towards that light value. Here's a little guy. You can draw this little guy super easy. It's a bullet and a circle, like an oval. Okay. And if you want to make it better, you can do another bullet there. You can put feet on it. Little arms. Okay, your first shading lesson is local value. So local value is how dark or light something is in and of itself, okay? So for instance, let's say things can only be dark, medium, or light, okay? So I'm gonna hold something up and you guys say what it is. This is, what do you guys think? Dark, okay? So this. Who's got it? Give me something. It's only one of those 3, dark, medium, or light. Okay, medium, fine. Okay, so this, light. Okay, so dark, medium, light. How about this? Light, maybe. How about this? How about this? How about this? Okay, how about this? Okay, how about this? Dark, right? How about that? Okay, so color has 3 components. Color has hue, saturation, and value. Okay, in Photoshop you might run into hue, saturation, brightness. It's a mathematical color model. It's a way of describing color. Okay, hue is when you name a color. Okay, so this is red. This is blue. This is yellow. This is orange. That's hue. Okay, when I was taught to paint with oil paint, the teacher told me, think of everything as red, yellow, blue. No matter what, like look at it and identify in your mind if it's red, yellow, or blue. So like for instance, if I was looking at this back wall, I would say that the bricks were red. I would say that the cabinet was yellow. I would say that the countertop was blue. Okay? Now all of those are really, really low saturation. Compare the red of the brick to the red of that bag. Right? So there's the red of the brick and the red of that portfolio. The difference between those two is saturation. One of them is super saturated. It's like what you would think of as like the red of like a lipstick or something like that. It's super, super bright red. Okay? Now look at the blue of the countertop. Compare that with the blue of those boxes. The blue of those boxes is really saturated. There's a lot of, it's a saturated blue, and the other blue is a really unsaturated blue. Okay? Look at the yellow of that, of like, say, the dress form. Compare it with the yellow of the drawing paper beside it. That's saturation. Leaving us with value, how light or dark a color is. Okay, so you could say, like my shirt is not as unsaturated as the blue of the counter, but it's very dark, right? It's a very dark blue, but it's not as, but it has more saturation than what's going on that countertop, okay? This we could say, well, yeah, no, it's not gonna work. Okay, so what we address, they often say that the key to color is value, the hardest part and the most important part, and that if you get the value right, everything else you can kind of fake. Everything else doesn't matter as much. But if you get the value wrong, no matter what you do, it looks wrong, okay? So one of the ways that we have, when I was just holding objects up and we were talking about value, things have what we'll call a local value. Okay, so that's our first note. Our first note says local. So local value, it comes from the idea of like being a local, like you live here, like you're a local, okay? And it's the value that is in and of something, right? It's that value that we were talking about. So if this person is wearing a shirt that is, say they're wearing black pants, the local value of the pants is dark. And let's say they're wearing a shirt that's medium. Okay, let's say that the shirt is a sort of medium value and it has a white stripe. Let's say that the person has black hair and dark skin. Let's say that they're wearing white shoes that have black stripes. Okay, so that's just local value. Now we can go a long ways with local value, right? Like you could do a lot of drawing with just local value. You know, you could draw a whole room full of people and you're just like, if you look around the room at what everybody's wearing, like take a quick look around. Like I'm wearing dark and dark and dark, and some other people are wearing like light and medium and dark, and some people are wearing like, you know, light, and like Owen is wearing like light and then dark, and then, you know, so you could really do a lot of designing just with light, medium, dark. Like you don't have to know a lot more to get yourself shading with design and shading with design impact, okay? Like we have in the room, we have this little puppy, right? And she has coloring like this. Here's a little puppy. And she has black, and then white, and then black, and then a white stripe, and then white socks. Okay, and then black, and then a little white tail, and drops down to little white socks. Okay? So getting the local value is wonderfully descriptive. It's really nice. You can start to use it. Like, look out the window. If you look out the window, one of the ways of ascertaining local value and value in general is to squint. So if you squint down out the window, like the sky is kind of it's kind of medium-ish, right? It's kind of light medium. The grass is kind of like darker medium, and then back there in the far back background, that's kind of dark medium. We don't really have, if you want to compare those things, like compare the black on the inside of the window here, like if we have this, the windowsill is super black, and if you compare the background to that, you can see. Okay. So you have local value, and you can use it, you could just be like, okay, I'm going to draw a square and a circle and a triangle. But I want them to look really good. Like I want this to be a cool drawing. And you could use that. You could be like, okay, I'm going to draw, this one is going to be dark. And this one is going to be medium. And the one in the background is going to be light. So this dark, medium, light, it's a really useful design tool, okay? Like if you're here and you're like, I'm not going to get that good at drawing. If you're like, I'm just like, whatever, I can tell already, I'm not going to get that good at drawing. Grab this. This is like easy and effective, okay? Like if you skip kind of the rest of what I teach in this lecture, don't skip this, okay? Just be able to set things up, dark, medium, light. It's a big deal. It really cleans your design up enormously. Like, look at this little guy. He looks like a little cartoon. Like, it's so easy, right? So, I'm a big fan of taking the easy stuff, in drawing. Like, there's enough hard stuff that if anything is easy, I definitely don't look down my nose at it. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna definitely do that one. And I recommend that. That's an attitude that I really hope you guys pick up. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to go on to is we're going to go on to talking about light. Okay. So the pigmentation of an object affects its local value. Okay. So we could say that this object has a pigmentation to it that makes it a dark middle value. Okay, so here, this has a pigmentation that affects its value. Now, notice this thing here. Notice this. Notice that this value is darker than that value. So what's going on? Why? Why is this value darker than that value? That's right, exactly. Yeah. So what's going on is there's a plane in space, okay? The light source is over there, and this is a plane in space. This side is not facing the light as much as that side is. Can you guys see how this is a middle value? Can you see we've got a dark, a middle, and a light inside a very dark, inside a dark middle object, okay? So how about if I take this guy? Same, right? See how I've got a dark, a middle transition zone? Like you can't really say where the transition is. It's towards the middle of this thing, and then you can see the light. Okay, so look at this guy. Now my transitions, look at the transition from here to there. And look at the transition from here to there, that little dark shadow in there. And look at the transition from here to there, and from here to there, right? Okay, so we start to get light and planes in space working off of each other. So we have this, we get this. Now you guys are all going to draw some expert cubes for me. I got the Y, and I draw this side inward and that side inward. I want you to draw 3 cubes. Okay, so let's say that this is a light cube, this is a medium cube, and this is a dark cube, okay? Now notice this, here's a light cube, okay? Now notice, you see the shadow side of this cube? Look at what happens, here's the shadow side. Look at how I've got light, medium, dark, right? But look at this black object over on the shadow side. You see how the black object is much darker than the shadow of the light object? Okay, so I'm going to put, this is going to be my shadow side of my light object. What I need now, so here's my shadow side. This is light. I need a value that's between this and that for my medium side, okay? See how that looks graphically correct? Like when you look there, it looks right. Looks like that's the way it should look. It looks like it's got volume. Okay, let's do our medium one. So here's going to be my light side of the medium. Here's going to be my dark side of the medium. Sorry, guys. Now I need one that's in between those two. Okay. Here's going to be my dark side of the dark object. Here's going to be my light side. Okay, the way that I get these wrong is by not hitting my tones clean enough, okay? So like if these are two, if I can't tell the difference between these two, or I can't tell the difference between those two, okay? So let's do this like really, let's do like a very simple cartoon drawing. We're gonna draw a bullet face guy. Here's a bullet face guy, and he's wearing a turtleneck sweater. So you could draw a bullet, another bullet, and a little box, okay? And here's a haircut. You could draw a little haircut. Okay, let's say that the light is coming from over here, okay? I'm going to have this person having a giant smile. Okay, the light's coming from over there. I'm going to start out with this person. I'm going to say that this turtleneck is, and they're going to have a stripe on their shirt too. It'll make it better. I'm going to say that the turtleneck is black, okay? So where the light hits it, so it's going to have a shadow side. Here's the shadow side of this turtleneck. Okay, now I'm going to turn into the medium side. Okay, now to the light side. Let's say this white stripe here, because the light's coming from that direction. Here's the shadow side of the white stripe. And then I gradate over to the light side. I go through a medium. Okay. Here's the hair. It's going to be black hair. Here's the shadow side of the black hair. Here's the medium of the black hair. This goes into shadow again, and then into medium again, and then here's the light side of it. Okay? Let's say that this person has medium skin tone. So here's the shadow side of medium skin tone. There's the medium part of it. We could say that they're smiling and they have this great white smile, crazy white teeth smile, and we'll say that that's the shadow side, medium light. Okay. Now that shading is really clean, right? That's really effective and clean shading. It's a diagram of what's going on with shading. Okay. Can you think of like how you would shade someone wearing a hoodie, right? You need the local value of the hoodie, the way that it surrounds the head. You need the local value of the skin. You come up with a shadow side, a light side. When you're shading someone's hair, there's a shadow side, there's a medium, there's a light side. If you're shading out here and you're looking at like a dark tree on a lawn, the dark tree has a local value, then there's a light side of the dark tree, a medium side, a dark side, okay? This is really basic, powerful shading technique, okay? You want to really like work that way. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about a shading strategy, okay? So when you're shading something, like let's say that you're shading a, let's start out with a sphere. Okay, the first most important element inside of shading is to say, like, let's decide on its local value. So let's say that the local value of this is light. And then what we want to do is we want to differentiate between the light shape and the shadow shape. So let's say that the shadow cuts across this at this angle. Okay. Okay, so this is sort of like minimum viable shading, right? We're just like looking for a shadow shape. We're just like saying like, so, and if you're drawing a person, like we'll go back to this bullet person. And you might go like this. And you just express the person as a volume, a very basic volume. You know, you could take and put a darkness behind them. See how like simple and powerful it is? Okay, now what happens is people get advanced. They like start trying to be fancy, and when they start trying to be fancy, instead of letting like, this is beautiful shading. It's just beautiful shading, okay? So instead of like letting it be as easy as it is, we all start to complicate it up, okay? And it makes it loses its efficacy. It takes away your ability to function as a designer, okay? So what you want to do is you want to work more simply, okay? I'm going to show you some things that make this, we can take it further. I'm going to show you how to take it a little bit further, okay? But like, so this one, notice how having a very clean light shape and a clean dark shape makes a graphic presence. And it's nice. It makes for a drawing that is effective, communicative, it has volume, it has, adding this element of dark, light, medium, and transition, okay? And we haven't even added transition yet, really. We've added transition here, and there, and there, okay? So we've added transition. But dark, light, medium, and transition, it's a very simple language, like, it's what what's baffling is that we go for harder things less effectively, and we don't do the simple things really, really well. So, I want to encourage you not to do that. I want to encourage you to use these simple tools first, and then later on go back and refine if you have time. Later on, go back and see what you can do to add to it. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to approach a language of light. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to start to bring an idea of illumination into our drawing. So far, I want to take that back. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's take, and we'll do our little bullet guy here. I'm going to give him a gun. Let's say the light's coming from over here. The first thing that I want to do is I want to mark the light shape. I added an element without telling you guys. Look at this element I added. You see this? That's a cast shadow. We can totally play with that cast shadow. The light's coming from this way, so the cast shadow is going to go like this. And cast shadows are fun. If I take this cast shadow, if I take this guy over here, and I cast a shadow over this way, up this, see how it changes direction? And it tells me about the shape. It tells me about the surface that's going on. So check it out. What if I did this? I've got this guy back here. And look at, I'm just going to go like this. You see how that means there's a wall back there? You guys pick up on that? Like I've told you about the wall that's back there without drawing it. Check this out. If I put the guy here, and he's throwing a shadow this way, watch what happens when his shadow comes over the ground, and then when it gets into a darker object, see the way the shadow changes value when it gets into a darker object? I could put him here. Telling me so much about the shapes it's being thrown on. It's very fun. Okay. So the first rule of light that we have is the separation of light and shadow. Okay, here's the first rule. We separate light and shadow. That's our first rule. The next one that I've given you is shadow being cast across an object, okay? So all of these, everything that you draw, you can say like, okay, here's an object. And the object will cast a shadow. And the object has a light side and a dark side at minimum. Okay, the next one that I want to give you is what's called occlusion, and it happens right here. Okay? And what happens is when two objects come together, like right underneath here, there's a black line. If you look up here, you see the little red dot, and then you look at that guy, you see the black line right there? What's going on is the light can't get in there, so it's throwing this black line. So you see here, I throw this black line, and it's graphically really effective. Like I call your attention to it before like fancy transitions because it's graphically so effective. Like look at, if I throw it in here, or if I put it here, or here, or there, it's that cool little space in there. And I want you guys to preference that. Okay, I want you to use that early on in your drawing. It gets your drawing further faster than subtleties, okay? Okay, so back to the cylinder. And draw this a little on the big side, not huge, but a little on the big side. Here's a cylinder. I'm going to do a minor axis, and I'm going to cast a shadow. I'm going to throw in my occlusion. I want to put in the cut of my light. I want to do this back here. I'm going to put something dark. Okay. So the next light thing that I want to call your attention to is I want to call your attention to what's called reflected light. So you'll notice that this right here will tend to darken. Leaving this here lighter, okay? It's a mistake to bring your darkest dark over to that edge. This darkness here is called the core shadow. This light here is called reflected light. This here is called occlusion. This is a cast shadow. Okay, now we're going to turn out of the core shadow very subtly. Okay, this shape is rounded. And because it's rounded, the transitions are really gentle. Okay, I want to come by and look at the work you do. You see how 3D that looks? How it looks like super 3D? It's like an effect, right? What I'm looking for is you see that this is darker than that. Okay, everybody make sure you get this. Someone always gets this wrong. So you guys, if you're not with me right now, get with me for 1 second. It's not darkest here. See how it's light on that edge? And then it gets dark here, and then there's this gentle transition up to the light again. So up here is light. This is called halftone. Okay, this is core shadow right in here. This is core shadow. It's the darkest part of the shadow, aside from the shadow accent, which is occlusion. And then the cast shadow. The cast shadow a lot of times is darker over here, and then it fades to a lighter. Like in here, it will be darker. Okay, so that's like rendering. That's like super 3D rendering, modeling. Okay, so let's quickly run through the other shapes that we work with. We'll go through the cylinder. Notice how the cylinder, the light shape, the shadow shape, even though the light is coming at an angle, notice how it runs down it like this? I don't know why that is, but it is. Here's my occlusion. Here's my cast shadow. Here's my terminator, which is going to make it so that I have reflected light. Here's my transition into the halftone. And then over on this edge, that's called a turning edge. Here we were drawing this cube. I want to make this the dark side. And I'm going to lighten it up just a little bit towards the bottom to have a little reflection in there. I'm going to let this be the medium side. I can add some occlusion over here. Okay. Occlusion, core shadow, turning, 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 cast shadow, turning edge, okay. If we have a ribbon, okay, we think of the direction that the light is coming from. The light is coming from this way. This would be in shadow. That would be in light. As it turns up, it would be darkening, and it's going to be gradating. There would be occlusion here, and there might be occlusion there, and the shadow on the ground would look like this. Transition over into the light, smooth transitions, reflected light. Okay, up here you have a guy, and he is standing in it's a dark night, okay? He's out there and everything around him is dark. He's wearing dark pants. And a light shirt, but even though it's a light shirt, everything around him is dark. And so even though it's a light shirt, his shirt is dark. Here he is again. Here they are again. And this time, it's like dusk. Okay. Here they are again. The last quality of light that I want to call your mind to is that light, like let's say I have a light right here. Here's a little street light. As it shines on the ground, here's a ground that it's shining on. As it shines on the ground, it lessens as it goes away. It's called fall off, okay? So here's what I'd like for you to practice. You see this? We were doing these in class, and I'm just taking this and I'm lighting it. And you see I threw a street light in here? So when you think about lighting for a set or for a movie or for even for a drawing, there's three kinds of light that you want to think about. You want to think about what we'll call what could be called the main light or the bully light. Okay, that in this case is coming from over here. You want to think about the ambient light, which is like the light that's in the world. Okay, just like the light that happens to be here bouncing all around. So there's light direction, but then there's also like on a foggy day or a day where you really don't, like today, you don't really see the sunlight. Like you can't see the direction of that volume based on light and dark. What you see is the reflection of the sun coming through the clouds and bouncing off of things and kind of lighting everything kind of equally. There's a kind of an ambient light. And then you want to think of accent lights, and like that would be like street lights or like a light from a car or a light from windows, or if you have Christmas tree lights or whatever, like little accent lights, okay? And it starts to make like a real environmental, so that's everything, okay? That's your lesson.